The Middle East has a very complicated history, to say the least. But I've noticed whenever you watch mainstream television or you listen to American citizens, they are very hostile towards the Islamic populations. But they seem to be more tilted towards Israel, towards Zionism. Now, my fundamental belief is that we should stay the hell out of the way. Let each country decide for themselves what they are supposed to do. But anytime the U.S. gets involved, it just makes things worse. The question that you have to ask yourself is, why does Iran, Iraq, Syria, Libya, all these countries hate the West and the United States? And in order to figure that out, you have to do a little bit of historical research. In the first video, I will talk about Iran. In the second video, I will talk about Iraq. And in the last video, I will conclude with the history of Saudi Arabia, how this all ties into today. So without further ado, let's get into Iran. For decades, the Royal Navy relied on coal to power its ships. High-quality steam coal was plentifully available in Britain. Its advantages were that it was reliable because of the availability of supply. But on the other hand, it was bulky, which meant it required large numbers of sailors to move aboard the ship, and it did not produce as much power as oil. By contrast, oil was easy to store and move, produced more power for its weight than coal, and its use freed up sailors for other duties. Oil-fired ships could accelerate and move considerably faster than coal-burning ones, had much greater range, and could carry more guns and armor and much more fuel. If Britain switched from coal to oil, they would require fewer coal stations and therefore fewer bases in far-flung places. There was only one problem. Britain had no oil at home, and little of it was known to be located in the vast empire. Thus, until 1912, oil was used only to power lighter ships that needed maximum speed. The big gun battleships, the fast battle cruisers, and the swift cruisers that were the heart of the Royal Navy and the decisive weapons systems of the era were all powered by coal. This is where Iran came in. In 1901, British businessman William Darcy had obtained from the Iranian government a 60-year concession that gave him the exclusive privilege to search, ship, trade, and sell Iranian petroleum products. This concession covered 500,000 square miles, the entirety of Iran except for the 5 northern provinces bordering Russia. But all that was obtained for only 20,000 pounds in cash, 20,000 in stock, plus bribes to various constituents, and the promise of a mere 16% of company profits, plus an annual rent, and that was more nominally. With Iran and Russia's concedence, Britain obtained an exclusive, recognized sphere of influence in the southeastern part of the country. They soon discovered significant quantities of oil and began production in 1908. The following year, the Anglo-Persian Oil Company was formed in London. In the midst of a deadly Anglo-German naval race, Admiralty Winston Churchill decided to mount heavy, large 15 guns on the British naval ships without robbing them of vital armor or equally vital speed. Oil gave 40% greater radius of action for the same weight of coal. It enabled a fleet to refuel at sea. In the view of these facts and the naval rivalry with Germany, it was decided that the new ships must be oil-powered. Once this decision was made, there could be no turning back for Britain or its rivals. Whereas oil had previously been important, it suddenly became a strategic resource absolutely vital to the maintenance of Britain's naval supremacy over Germany. Oil, therefore, enhanced the strategic importance of not just Iran, but the Middle East. Britain now had physical control over the area where oil was located, and the company's 60-year concession gave Britain immense power. By 1914, the Persian oil fields were producing 273,000 tons of oil annually, and by 1920, over 5 times that amount. Britain feared on the eve of World War I that the Ottoman forces, backed by Germany, might invade Iran to interrupt the flow of oil to the Royal Navy, thus unleashed a new cycle of intervention in the Middle East. As soon as the war broke out, British troops landed in the oil-producing areas of Iran to protect the Iranian oil fields. And that's why I laughed when people that don't know anything about history, when Trump was talking about taking the oil from Iraq, they're like, no country that is civilized has ever done that. And it's like, you dumbass. You don't know what you're talking about. Whether you agree or not, countries have taken oil and vital resources for as long as empires have existed, over thousands of years ago. Now let's get into the coup d'etat. The leader of Iran, Mossadegh, and I know I butchered that, had sought to audit the documents of the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, and that company is now part of BP, British Petroleum, and to limit the company's control over Iranian oil reserves. Upon the refused of the company to cooperate with Iranian government, the parliament voted to nationalize Iran's oil industry and to expel foreign corporate representatives from the country. After the vote, Britain instigated a worldwide boycott of Iranian oil to pressure Iran economically. So to make it short, they controlled oil in Iraq, Kuwait, Bahrain. They stopped selling Iranian oil, which screwed up their economy. They ended up, the UK Prime Minister, which was Churchill in the 50s, and Eisenhower was the US President, decided to overthrow Iran's government. So following the coup in 1953, the Shah, which is Persian for Iranian king, ruled firmly as a monarch and relied heavily on the US to hold on to power. And these documents came out not so long ago. I read them on the CIA website. This was the first time in history that the US government participated in a coup d'etat during peacetime. And this is what they did. They go into countries, they want to nationalize a resource, take all that money for their own gain, and if that country does not do it, just like in Guatemala, United Fruit, this is the textbook, they remove that leader. Part 2 coming up soon.